Well, thank you so much, Sam, for joining me today. Really excited to dive into your story, to your journey and the product that you have built and are continuing to build. Before we get into Babyation and sort of everything it is and what you want it to be, talk a little bit about the light bulb moment, let's say, for Babyation, for this new sort of, modern, pump. Walk through the inspiration, let's say, for building the brand and sort of the product.
Absolutely. And very candidly, it was kind of a fluke. Before I had kids, before I got pregnant, I was on a ski trip with my husband and I was bored on a Sunday morning. He was still asleep and I was playing on my phone and I stumbled across an article in the New York Times that said, shouldn't the breast pump be as elegant as an iPhone and as quiet as a Prius by now? And very candidly, I don't even know if I knew what a breast pump was. Like, this was not the kind of natural assumption is I have a baby, I use a pump, I don't like it, I want to make something better. And that's a very reasonable assumption. That was not our journey.
Sure.
I read this article and just kind of saw my future flash before my eyes. And I'll never forget it. I shook my husband, Jared, awake and I said, can you believe one more thing women have to deal with? Because even though I didn't know what a breast pump was, I certainly was familiar with the fact that there was no disrespect to men at all, but just kind of very unfair labor burden on women. Just in the concept of like getting pregnant, having the baby, like just even if you stop there, like obviously it was, it was not equal. And so I just kind of climbed up on my soapbox and Jared opened up one eye and said, oh, breast pumps aren't that complicated. I can build one, and went back to sleep, which is like so like just perfect for how, the whole like fatherhood journey. Right. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then we skied that day, but I was really just still amped up. And so we were driving back home that night. We had a few hour car ride and I said, okay, let's talk about this breast pump. Like, let's solve this problem. Like it's, this was a while ago, but even then like, there are apps and this should be app controllable and it should be quiet and, no one should know what I'm doing. And these things felt very obvious. And this was a Sunday. And then the next day I went back to my like job and life and didn't think about it in a meaningful way for a while. But for whatever reason, somehow I guess the algorithm thought that I cared about breast pumps, kicked off a slew of articles that summer, that spring into that summer, that talked about the shortcomings of breast pumps. And, we started to socialize the idea with friends that had kids. Are breast pumps really that bad? Is this clickbait? Like, what is this? And would this kind of very theoretical concept of quiet and discreet and app controllable, like, would that resonate with you? And we kind of got this resounding yes. And we said, okay, that's interesting. And then took very like baby steps. Okay, let's buy a breast pump and see how it works.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can make it quieter. Just, can we just insulate this a little bit more? And we really tiptoed our way into doing it. And we finally had enough, we were spending enough time and enough money on it that we said, okay, like if we're going to do this, let's see if we can get a grant to keep going. And then we got one grant and then we were lucky enough to get another grant. And, obviously, spoiler alert, here we are. But it was, there was kind of that one light bulb moment in that article, but it took, more than a year, really two, to say, okay, like we're doing this thing.
Wow. And it's a unique product because it's hardware and software. And that's, software is its own battle. And, it's obviously come a long way and you can spin up stuff fast. But hardware is just a different beast and animal. There's so much involved with that.
So, what we did not, we were not subtle, right? Our first kind of foray into this was a medical hardware, a medical device, an app that controls
it. Let's take the hardest route ever.
That controls a medical device is also a medical device. So we accidentally made two medical devices. It's great. Everything's great. But we obviously, things have gone really well for us and I'm very grateful, but I don't think we fully understood what we were setting out to do.
I guess going down that path of building something, you're also building a company at the same time, which has its own dynamics to it as well. Did you and your husband do this before? I guess, how is that going from, that car ride saying, let's pepper him with questions, he's asking questions. And I guess, what was that sort of journey like? You said about a year, right? From sort of reading to researching to maybe getting a prototype. I mean, the amount of learnings that you learn was probably like a crash course, like a master's degree in just like building a company, understanding like the leaps that you have to do. Like, just talk about that 1 year, from idea to sort of, I don't know, let's say launch or something like that.
So breast pumps are medical devices. So there was no 1 year. Any breast pump, no matter who you are or how much money you have, this is a multi-year R&D process. So breast pumps, I think, come to market very quickly in this, when you're looking at kind of any medical device, right? It's a fairly relatively fast path to market. But compared to kind of anything else, it's a slower process. So there's nothing quick about our journey. There's nothing quick about anybody who's making a breast pump's journey. It's everyone. It's a multi-year endeavor. But for us, Jared and I had worked together. We actually met working at the campus TV station in college. And so we've always worked on different sides of the same industry. So for us, that piece was a fairly seamless transition to working together. We both kind of had a shorthand at that point about how to work together, who was good at what, how to stay in our own lanes and not step on each other's toes. That was, fairly seamless for us. But, I think that you really hit on something that I don't hear very much. It's not only are you building a product, but you're building a company too. And I think that piece doesn't always get as much attention as I think it should.
What was a traditional pump like? And now what is Babyation's pump? How does it differ? What are sort of the modernization of it? Obviously you said the app, but I'm sure there's a lot more that there's there compared to what has traditionally been out there. I guess walk just through the differences and why you think this product is, top of its class, let's say.
So the product that had been on the market for so long first of all, it was designed for dairy cows and adapted to humans, which feels backwards to me. But, if you think about it, it's basically, it was a hard plastic funnel connected to a baby bottle that hangs off the breast. So there's nothing subtle or discreet about it. It's, you've got a lot of stuff there and it projects several inches off the body. The suction mechanism was essentially a yank and release. So if you imagine this is, yanking on my nipple and releasing it, it's not natural. It's not how a baby suckles. A baby kind of compresses. And so our suction was designed to essentially kind of balloon and contract with a soft silicone. So it much more closely mimics the way a baby suckles at the breast. And then because of that, we were able to change the mechanism by kind of separating the milk collection. So old model, like I said, funnel connected to bottle that hangs off the breast. We have a very discreet breast shield made with soft silicone. So it's much more comfortable and much more similar to how a baby nurses. And then we store the milk in an enclosure with built-in cooling. So if I was talking to you right now in pumping, you wouldn't be able to tell because, it's very low profile. Mm-hmm. And then the milk goes straight into essentially a cooler, which means that I'm focused on talking to you and I'm not worried about, oh gosh, is the milk going to go bad?
No, I think the time it took, it looks like, to do the design of everything involved with it, I think is also such a key, taking time to really design this kit that you have, right? Where it's sort of subtle. Everything fits like really perfectly. There's, I think you did a great job on your site, and we'll link to it, of sort of comparing the other pumps out there of like, hey, what do you have to clean in this one? What does the packaging looks like? There's all these different parts and stuff you have to carry around. It's not very mobile. It's not very sort of friendly to travel with. It's just day to day. It's just a really clunky sort of device historically. So kudos to the hardware design as well. That's such a huge part of all this.
Yeah, I was shocked at just the number of decisions that we had to make.
I mean, every day was probably, again, hardware is just such a crazy animal. And then obviously software, like what does the app do?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm obsessed with our app. So, fundamentally what we wanted to change was, if you, in that old school kind of funnel bottle method, right, to know how much milk you've pumped, which is something that women care very deeply about. You're essentially craning your neck and looking upside down and trying to gauge how much milk is in there. And so kind of it's very basic. What we wanted to do was be able to look at the app, and it's optional. You don't have to use it, but see how much milk is there per side. Can I adjust the speed and the suction? Because our whole kind of North Star was discretion. And so it's not discreet if I'm fiddling with something on my chest, no matter what's covering it. It's not discreet. But, for better or worse, if people are looking at their phones, that's not a tip off of anything other than perhaps rudeness. But it's not, it's certainly not a signal of breastfeeding or breast pumping. So that, kind of at its basic, we wanted that level. But we took it a couple steps further, and we actually have an auto start and an auto shut off timer. So again, using that, kind of concept of if I was talking to you, or if I was talking to you and pumping during this podcast, it could automatically start in 15 minutes. And again, I'm not staring at the clock. I'm able to give you my full attention because I know it's just going to start when I need it to start. And similarly, it's going to shut off when it's full, so that I'm able to really turn my attention to whatever it is I'm doing and have the kind of pumping experience integrate into my life instead of me having to revolve my life around the breast pump, which for too long is kind of what we were forced to do, right? We were literally forced to take off our shirts and hide in a closet And, then your entire life becomes kind of that 2-hour interval. Where am I going to go? How am I going to keep the milk cold? What am I going to do? Whereas with ours, it is kind of a seamless integration. And the app is, a really big part of it. The other piece that we really wanted to do with the app was we made it a feeding app, which means that I can track not only how much milk I've expressed, but how much milk a baby has been fed, both milk and formula, because we know that 80% of moms combo feed. And that's amazing. We are super, super, super pro feeding a baby however is right for the family. And so we try to have that kind of ethos shown in our products. So we have formula built into our breastfeeding app. We have caregivers because we know that moms aren't the only ones feeding the baby. Dads are, nannies are, grandparents are, etc. And so that's built into our app. And then we also have a feature where you can say, you can look and say, I have this much milk on hand. So I have this many ounces in the freezer. I have this many ounces in the fridge. The baby has now fed this many ounces, so that's going to deplete from whichever place it's stored. We really wanted to look at the entire feeding journey and feeding experience. And the app is one of my favorite things that we created. I love it so much.
What's the, I guess, do 100% of moms use pumps? Like, I guess, what is the percentage of usage around naturally versus using a pump?
So we found it a couple different ways. So, there's kind of the CDC tracks the number of people that initiate breastfeeding and then are still breastfeeding at, at various milestones. And that doesn't mean that they're exclusively breastfeeding, just that they also feed their baby breast milk. And so, we kind of have that as a data point. We have the data point of how many people have more than one breast pump. So that was one of the things that was most fascinating to me as we did as we embarked on our own market research. We didn't want to just know how many people had a breast pump. We wanted to know how many of them have more than one, because that signals to us that they haven't found one that meets their needs. And what we found was that more than 70% of women had more than one breast pump, which I found shocking. And I think part of that is because you get a free one from insurance, but it's generally not a high quality one because, and I'm going to try not to get on my soapbox too much, but the insurance reimbursement rates for breast pumps are so much lower than they are things like a knee brace. And a knee brace, by the way, has no power, has no, no motor. It's a wrap, right? Just essentially a piece of Velcro, and that is reimbursed at such a higher rate than a breast pump.
Because it's probably $8 or something, right? I mean, they're going to reimburse them because it's cheap.
Exactly. So, so that's part of why you get this free one, because why wouldn't you get a free one? But then you're like, this doesn't really work for what I need it to do. I'm going to go buy another one. And, my favorite one was one of our very early reviews was from someone who had 16 breast pumps. She had literally tried every breast pump on them. I mean, certainly most of the breast pumps on the market. And so some of these women, in their quest to find something that works for them, works for their body, works for their lives, this is a very, very important part of their lives.
I mean, she must have gave you so many insights.
Exactly.
From that one person, you probably learned that was probably just like a gold mine for you to just like ask questions. Going to the business model. So you have hardware, you have software. Is it like a Peloton business model where you have to buy the hardware and then the app also kind of costs something, or you just buy the hardware, the pump itself, and the app and everything that goes with that is sort of free? So
the app is free, at least right now. The app is free. Yeah. So you have the initial hardware purchase. There is a recurring component of the pump because the tubes that the milk flow through that make are kind of everything special about our product, they're meant to be disposable, so they are replaced. Gotcha. And so there is a recurring subscription component of that. But as part of that, you got free access to our app. One of the things that I'm most proud of is our customer service team is fantastic, and it is staffed exclusively by lactation consultants. So either IBCLCs, International Board Certified Lactation Consultants, or CLCs, Certified Lactation Counselors. Either one requires many, many hours of training. You have to take a test. And, like that is administrated by, a very specific body. It's not like I can just go sign up for this test online and take it in 5 minutes. And so we have, I lovingly call them pump concierges. We are here every step of the way. Once you buy one of our breast pumps, we are here. We will do whatever it takes to make sure you have a positive experience. And we get, really strong feedback on our customer service.
You mentioned insurance.
Yeah.
Have you tried to navigate that at all to try to get, obviously this product at least subsidized in some way? What has it been like navigating, maybe talking to insurance, researching how they approve things? What have you learned going down that path? And is it possible eventually to have at least, some of this covered by health insurance? Has there been one that has been open to covering something like this? Like, I guess just what's your experience been like going down that road?
Yeah, absolutely. So every insurance company is different. So we already know that some of our moms are able to get reimbursement for, either part or all of our product, depending on their plan. And it's really plan and provider and state specific. So I can't give it. And I think that's the case for everybody. So, we are covered. We do have some partnerships. Our advice to everyone is to check directly with their insurance provider because, like I said, there is nuance and no one has a database of every single plan in the country. But, I fully believe that just like we reimburse for those high knee braces, we should also, reimburse for quality breast pumps because this does make an economic impact for women, right? If they are able to continue pumping while they're doing what they need to do, I think that's better for everyone if they want to. And we're going to be really clear about that, right? We are never going to say you have to, or you must, or even that you should breastfeed or use a breast pump. You should do whatever's right for you. But we want to make sure that for the people who believe that this is the right choice for them and the best choice for them, that they have access to the best technology. That's really, really important to us. So certainly anyone who wants to work with us on an insurance standpoint, we're open to. We accept HSA and FSA dollars as well. And then we are also, to the best of my knowledge, the only breast pump company that does a give back program every quarter.
Yeah, I saw that.
So people can apply for a free breast pump and we will send it. We send multiple ones every quarter.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to talk a little bit about aspiring other kind of female entrepreneurs, not just females, but other people in like the healthcare space. I've past few months, ironically, I've talked to, four different startups in sort of the mostly health tech space, none in hardware. So this is a delight. I guess what are some of the tips and advice you would give aspiring entrepreneurs coming into, you kind of been through the ringer. So I'd love to get your thoughts on tips and advice you would sort of give.
So it's a really good question. And I think it's extra nuanced because even though we are obviously a medical device, we went through the FDA's 510K clearance process. We are an FDA registered manufacturer. We care very deeply about manufacturing to the quality standards that are expected of us from a medical device. And again, we take that very seriously. We do that internally. And that's something I'm really proud of, that we actually do final assembly on our breast pumps right here in St. Louis out of our own facility. So while there are very important and very stringent aspects that we care deeply about and give a lot of attention to on the medical device side, at the end of the day, our users are moms. And so we, in many ways, think of ourselves as a consumer product. So we're kind of at this really weird intersection, right? Most medical devices are selling to medical device reps or hospital systems or doctors' offices, or, they're really focused on kind of building those insurance partnerships. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But, we really view ourselves as a consumer product that is just highly, highly regulated with good reason. So, I'm not sure that I'm the best person to give advice to someone who's making a medical device, just because that's, again, we try to do it right and safely and care very deeply about it. But it's not, if you were to say give me the 2-second blurb on Babyation, I would say we're a feeding company, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the lane that we believe that we're in. But, I think the advice that I would probably give to anyone who's looking to start a business is probably fairly universal. And I think the number one piece of advice that I would give is make sure that you have a solution for an actual problem, not a solution in search of a problem. The number one piece of advice that I can give is, it's great that you have this cool thing, but if nobody needs this cool thing, it's not as exciting as you might want it to be. So that's number one. Number two, I think that we all have to know why we're doing this, because the path of entrepreneurship, I don't care how successful you are, is not easy. Being a founder is not easy. In fact, I would say it's probably one of the harder career paths that you can choose. And I'm grateful every single day that I get to wake up and choose it. And I have the opportunity and the privilege to continue choosing it. And the pride that I get every single time I walk through the front door of our building is not small. So for me, I wouldn't change it for anything. But I hear so many people saying, I'm going to start a company so that I can have more control over my schedule, or so that I can make a lot of money, or so that I can do X, Y, or Z. And, I can promise you that there are easier and less stressful ways to accomplish both of those goals.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just really making sure that you're clear on what you want, what kind of lifestyle you want, what you're really good at, what you're comfortable with, right? I have a very good friend who has had an incredible career. She is beyond accomplished, but this would not be the path for her, right? You've got to be so comfortable with so much uncertainty and figuring things out and banging your head up against a wall and highs and lows. And you have to know yourself and know that that's something that you are not only prepared for, but gravitate towards. And I think it takes what I lovingly call a special kind of crazy. I love it. Like I pinch myself truly every single day that I have the privilege to have to work with the people that I work with. And, I will like walk around our warehouse and see inventory and be like, oh my God, like we did this. And the fact that all of these years later, like I still get chills and it never gets old kind of indicates to me like we are on the right path. But, to say that it has been easy and stress-free would be very untrue and would be incredibly misleading to anybody who's thinking. And so I think kind of once you clear that bar of like, this is right for you, my next big tip is you have to have the people in your network that you know who to go to when things get hard. Who's going to be your cheerleader? Who's going to give you the reality check? Who's going to help you solve the problem? Because you need those people in your corner.
Another part of this, raising money, what was that process like? And again, this kind of goes back to, entrepreneurs kind of learning the process of things. This is a big one, and this is a really, really difficult one. Mm-hmm. And this is, I guess, what stage of Babyation where you're at when you realize, look, we have to go raise millions of dollars for this?
So I think we instinctively always knew, when we were not independently wealthy such that we could fund it ourselves. We started out with grants, which, I think is, look, if you can get non-dilutive funding, I always recommend that.
Dream.
We also knew that we weren't going to get enough non-dilutive funding to get us all the way to where we needed to go. But it was a great place to start because then it allowed us to potentially overcome some potential objections from very early stage investors. It allowed us to get a better valuation. It allowed the dollars to go further, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we really were able to de-risk. We used grants to get to essentially a working prototype. It was not beautiful, but we could show that like this concept worked enough that we could file our provisional patent, et cetera. So that was where we started. Our first investor was an institutional investor that heard me pitch at a pitch competition in California. And that was kind of the domino that started tipping. So we do have, kind of like everybody else, right? We have institutional investors, we have some angel investors, family offices and, kind of anything in between. I love fundraising. I think we've probably established that, to be a founder, you have to be a little bit of a masochist. And so therefore, and I think kind of loving fundraising takes that even a step further.
That's a great founder skill though, man. If you love fundraising.
Why wouldn't I want to talk about my business all day? I love it. Like, I'm so proud of what we've accomplished and I want to hear what people think. And, I understand, like, of course, not everybody's going to say yes. Like that's new. Yeah. That's inherent in anything. But I want to hear what people have to say and I want to hear what people want to know. And I want to get better at talking about my business because that's how I choose to spend my time. So I think fundraising is one of the greatest things ever. Now, look, there are times that I absolutely want to throw my computer out the window. So, I'm not I want to be realistic here. I'm not saying it's all sunshine and butterflies, but I've really come to appreciate fundraising. And I like to kind of gamify it, right? I look at the entire funnel, just kind of like we do with our customers, right? If we don't have the right top of funnel, we're not going to have the right conversion percentage. And so I try to really think about it like that. And I think that was one of the biggest learnings is really focusing on the top of funnel to not only, maximize my chances of success, but to make sure that, we're talking to the right people.
I want to end a little bit on the future here. Yeah. And you've done so much and it gotten so far at this point. And it's really inspiring to see what you and the team have built. I love how, local jobs to me is amazing. It's so important. And to me, that's worth all the time and effort. But looking maybe 3, 5, maybe 10 years down the line, what are some of the goals and successes you and the team would like to achieve?
Well, let me start by saying that we're a feeding company. We're not a breastfeeding. You're not a breast pump company. We're a feeding company. And I'm going to just leave that there. We've always positioned ourselves as a feeding company. And we've done some pretty cool stuff that may still be under the radar that I look forward to talking about. So that's kind of part one. Part two, look, in 10 years, I really hope our investors have gotten the return on their investment that we expect that they'll get. I hope that we've gotten the return on the investment that we've put in. I look forward to continuing to work with the team that we have because I think that I couldn't imagine working with better people. But I certainly, and I say this genuinely, I don't say this because this is a public podcast. Like, people expect a return on our investment and I expect to be able to get that to them. Or at least I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that we do that because that is a really important job. That is equally as important for my job as a founder is to make sure that we surprise and delight our customers. They are, absolutely the most important people that we serve, but, a very close second is our investors. And so I always want to make sure I'm doing everything that I can to maximize their return. And, I think that's something that, maybe as founders, we don't talk about as publicly as we should, but that kind of goes, hand in hand with my love of fundraising, right? I can't say I love fundraising and love talking to potential investors and love getting people to believe in what we're doing without also saying, hey, the flip side of that is here's what I'm doing to get you that return. This isn't a charity. People aren't giving us their money because they want to make a charitable donation.
Sam, this is, I love every aspect of it. Hardware, software, local job creation. Like, there's just not many companies doing this, in a space that is sort of unique, but also has a massive scale potential.
Absolutely.
Right? Like the market for this is huge. And so that's why I'm sure your investors were keen on writing checks for this, because it is a really massive market.
Absolutely. And it is a problem that, impacts men too, right? They're cleaning the breast pump parts, they're hearing it. One of the biggest surprises to me in this journey has been the number of people that as soon as they hear what we're doing, they want to share their story. Let me tell you about the weirdest place I pumped, or the time I dropped the pump parts in the toilet at the airport. And
that's a great podcast, Pump Stories.
Oh
you
my
should
gosh,
do
we
it.
do that all day. But we get those stories from men too, which I would not have expected. We get them from grandfathers. We get them from husbands. We even get them from, single people, which no disrespect at all, who you wouldn't think of would have a pump story, but, their coworker in the office or whatever it happens to be. So I was really surprised at kind of the ubiquitous, I can't even say that word, the universal nature of breast pumps. And I love that because it's something we should be talking about. It shouldn't be something that should be pushed into a closet. It should be something that we all relate to.
Again, thank you so much for taking time. Hopefully, whenever you release anything new in the future, let me know. I want to see what this feeding company becomes.
Hopefully lots of good things.
Well, thanks so much, Sam. Best of luck for the next decade for you and the team.
Appreciate it. Have a great day. Thanks, Grant.